With that all out of the way, I'd really love to introduce our next speaker, who is Karen Hopper from MNR. Karen is a senior, she's just doing a little dance there. Karen is the senior data strategist at MNR and has the privilege of leading the testing team, overseeing website, email, and ad testing strategy, implementation, reporting for more than 25 nonprofits. But you know what? She isn't all about the data side. She also has a hand in managing email marketing, drafting creative briefs, implementing social media strategy, and building SMS programs. Today, her session is titled Engaging and Converting Donors in the Mobile Age, where she will be focusing on mobile behavior and what you need to do in order to ensure the shift towards mobile and to maximize engagement. All right. Also one more thing, if you do have any questions, please pop them into the Q&A or into the chat box throughout, and then Karen, I think, is going to do about 2 or 3 pauses throughout where we can get to all of your questions. So please feel free to pop those into the Q&A in the chat box. Please remember that when you do pop them into the chat box, make sure you select all panelists and attendees if you want everyone to see your questions. All right, and with that, Karen, I think I'll pass it off to you now.
Great. Awesome. Playing a little bit of bingo. It's like, can you see my screen?
We can definitely see your screen.
Great.
We're good to go.
Great. Awesome. So thank you for that introduction. I'm so excited to be here with you today. As Mel mentioned, I am a data strategist. So that means that really I straddle the bridge between essentially nonprofit client strategy as well as the data side of things. So you're going to get a lot of data today. Buckle up. I'm really excited to share some of these statistics with you. But we're also going to be covering a lot of the successes that we've seen with our nonprofit clients. A lot of test-driven successes, as well as just some really cool examples of what you can do with mobile. Here's a little bit about me and about MNR. MNR is a consulting firm. We work only with nonprofit clients, primarily with American nonprofits, but we do have a few clients in Canada as well as Brazil. If you're interested in checking us out, we have an incredible benchmarks report and a great blog that we publish all sorts of case studies throughout the year. That's all completely free. So please give us a follow, give us a shout. We love to engage on anything nonprofit and especially data. So today we're going to be covering why mobile, why now, why is it so important? We've been alluding to this, the importance of mobile and the importance of the shift towards these mobile devices, but why does it matter and why now in particular, especially during COVID? Then we're going to do a big deep dive into data. I have benchmarks data, I have Google's data, I have tons and tons of juicy statistics to convince whoever you're working with that it's important and that you should focus on it. And then again, just some successes to inspire you as you build your own programs. So mobile devices, they are truly taking over, but they're not the only thing that's taking over. There are hundreds of channels, hundreds of different ways that we can talk to our donors. And so whenever we're thinking about mobile or email or social, we have to about this all-encompassing experience that we're creating for our donors or creating for our supporters and our audience. Just keep in mind that people are engaging with you in all sorts of maybe off the wall places. So I added the TikTok thing here because that's been a big thing. I don't understand it. I'm a millennial. I still don't understand TikTok. Like, that's a Gen Z thing, I think. Like, don't ask me. But people have been using it, and nonprofits have been using it as well to connect with their donors. And of course, we have, what we would consider the legacy channels. We have email and mail that we're typically used to relying on. But now we also have Facebook Messenger bots and connected TV, and Alexa is allowing people to make donations too. So like, what are we to do with all of this information? Well, I'm here as a bearer of a little bit of bad news. We've done some analysis recently of our email files in particular, and up to 75% of our donors are unreachable by email. That means that they have stopped opening their emails, that they've become undeliverable for one reason or another. They're inactive, or their emails may have flipped over into spam traps. So this idea of deliverability and being able to reach our audience through email that we've really relied on as our primary means of communication with these donors is starting to fade away. I'm not saying email is dead. You will not hear me saying that, because email is still incredibly important. But we have to keep in mind that we're in this world where there is this surround sound of information, and people are getting bombarded with information on all sides. And so if we're really taking a minute to think about the experience of our donors and the experience of folks, and you're only thinking about email as the way to reach them, then you're definitely missing out on opportunities to connect with folks. We also have what we would consider the generational chasm, which is like a really dramatic way of saying that people are using platforms differently. So even just looking at Gen X and millennials is not even talking about Gen Z. But so Gen X is, you know, they check email and they're really engaged with things like Instagram and Facebook. But millennials, like, we're not as great at checking our personal email. Like, I am, really, because we're really engaged with text messages. I hate calling people. I hate talking to people on the phone. But if you message me on Instagram, you're probably going to get a response. And of course, I'm just one data point in this as like a middle-aged millennial here. But again, if we're thinking about the ways in which people are interacting with our content and interacting with our experience that we're providing to them, we have to be considering all of these other channels. Another huge aspect of this that really doesn't get enough attention is the idea of the digital divide. And so when we're talking about the communities that we're serving, that we are, you know, providing services for, raising money to help, community engagement, and we're wanting to reach those folks, chances are that audience might not have a desktop computer. And really they're engaging with you on their smartphones. We do a lot of digital organizing for, you know, lower income communities and worker organizing in the labor movement. And we primarily use text message to communicate with these folks because a lot of them don't have email accounts. And so that's just something to keep in mind if you're specifically looking to do outreach to certain audiences, that's a different, I know we're supposed to be talking about donors, but it's really another aspect of the mobile experience that is truly important and not forget. So all of this is to say, we are attached to our phones. In some ways, they can be life-saving. In Virginia, they have a COVID contact tracing app where they're encouraging everyone to download an app onto their smartphones. And then when someone tests positive, they're sending an automated message to anyone who is within a certain distance of that person's cell phone, completely anonymously, saying that they had been exposed and that they should go get tested. And so this is another way that, like, mobile is changing our lives. So it's time that we get serious about mobile devices and how we're presenting ourselves to people on these teensy tiny little screens that we carry around in our pockets all the time. It's like mine's right here. So data, my favorite part. M&R puts together a benchmarks report of over, I think last year was over 200 nonprofits sent us their data. We analyzed it, crunched the numbers, and came up with essentially industry-wide benchmarks for a ton of different metrics. You can find it at mrbenchmarks.com. Not right now, you can wait till after we're done, but it's here, it's fantastic. I love to play with it because data. So just a quick vocabulary before we jump into the comparisons. We use essentially what Google defines for these different devices. So this is what Google would call a device category. And so desktop category is any laptop computer with a screen that is 7 inches or bigger. While mobile devices are by definition including a phone. And then tablet is kind of everything else. It doesn't necessarily include a phone, but it can include a phone. So, you know, those like big Samsung Note things, I think they actually can be used as a phone, but they actually get qualified as a tablet in the Google Analytics system, I believe. But so tablet's kind of the catch-all for everything else. And so we'll be mostly focusing in on the differences between behavior on desktop and mobile for the purposes of this conversation today. So the big one, 50% of all of your website traffic is visiting on a mobile device. And so this is the median for nonprofits. Your number could be lower or it could be substantially higher. I've seen some organizations with up to 85% of their traffic coming through on mobile devices. That is a huge proportion of traffic. But what are these folks doing once they get there? Turns out that their conversion rates and their average gifts are often much lower when they're coming in on mobile devices. There are a number of reasons why this could be possible. We don't have a lot of hard data to inform why that might be, mostly because that's qualitative data that's really difficult to collect. But what we do know is that while desktop users are converting about 21% of the time once they get to your donation form, only 9% of mobile users are converting. That's a big gap. And if we can move the needle on that mobile engagement, especially knowing that most of our visitors are coming on mobile device, that can result in a ton of extra revenue for us over the course of, you know, the rest of the lifetime, especially as people are using their mobile phones more and more and more. So diving in, just looking at the numbers all in one place. Traffic, if we're looking at the purple bar, that's going to be our mobile bar. You can see that traffic is 50% mobile, but those mobile users are only 33% of our transactions and only 25% of the revenue. So there's that difference between conversion rate and average gift there. But you can see underneath in those little parentheses, that's the change year over year. And so last year we saw our mobile traffic increase by 11%, but our transactions and our revenues actually increased at a higher rate. So more people, they're coming, but even a proportion of those folks who had been coming are now more comfortable and more willing to make a donation on their mobile devices. And we'll dig into that a little bit more later with mobile payment and the way that we're presenting our donation options. But that's just important to know, is that we can't ignore these folks because they are willing to donate. We can reach them. They can make a contribution with their mobile devices. But they're still doing so at lower rates, and so there still is room for improvement. And also, just looking at one device doesn't tell the whole story. And so this is real live data from one of our ads clients, where it's telling us that 45% of conversions that happened on desktop devices actually happened after people saw and interacted with our ads on their mobile devices. And if you step back and think about this, it makes a lot of sense. When you're researching a product or an organization, what do you typically do in service of researching that thing? Typically, you know, you're sitting on the couch, you're watching TV maybe, and it just occurs to you, it's like, oh yeah, I wanted to check out the prices on these things to see if it's in our budget this month to get them. So for instance, I have a new webcam here. It's very shiny, it's very nice. Hopefully I look great. But when I was doing research to get a new webcam, I was doing that research while I was watching Netflix at night, occasionally while I was, you know, doing work during the day on my desktop computer. And then ultimately when I made that purchase, it was on my phone, but I interacted with the sales pages and the pricing pages on several different devices before I made that ultimate purchase decision. And when people are interacting with mobile device or with your nonprofit, with your organization, they're doing so in a very similar way. Perhaps they have a question about something and they Google it, and then they get to a content page on your website. Awesome, great. They learned a little bit about you, but hopefully you have, retargeting ads set up so that maybe you're also going to reach them on Facebook later that week and they can see, oh yeah, that thing. I remember that big issue that I was thinking about. I would like to take an action now. And all of a sudden you've engaged folks in another channel. And you can see how it will start snowballing. And now they're on the email list and now we can reach them in other channels. So again, this wraparound experience, it's not mobile is the be all end all of everything. It's just an increasingly large part of everyone's everyday user experience with learning, engagement, and ultimately donating. Ooh, I'm gonna pause and now I saw there was a lot happening in the chat. Are there any questions at this point, Mel? You've been watching the situation.
Yeah, there's been a lot of just conversation when you first began about TikTok. But there was one. I know. But there was one question from Aaron. Do you think giving is lower via mobile due to concerns about security of financial info?
That's definitely one of the hypotheses for why folks aren't giving on mobile. Definitely. It's also just kind of a pain in the butt to type in your credit card information. So that's another side of the thing, right? It's harder. People might be concerned about security. It takes a while. You might be in the middle of doing something else. All of these things are contributing to whether or not someone is able to make a donation, able to or comfortable making a donation on a mobile device. But yeah, for sure. And there are ways you can mitigate that with cues on your form. And I see Anna is wanting to know about donation experiences. And yes, I have lots of examples later in this presentation. So absolutely. Cool.
Perfect.
Awesome. So need for speed. So this is not specific to mobile, but applies to mobile more, even probably more than it does for desktop devices. And what I'm talking about when I'm saying speed is load speed. Because for every 1 second delay in page load time, you're gonna lose 11% of your visitors. Woof. And with that comes a drop in conversions as well. And so for every second in load time, you lose about 7% of your conversions. This all boils down to 53% of mobile users will completely abandon your site if it takes longer than 3 seconds to load. That sounds pretty harsh, but again, if you think to your own experience, you click through a link on an email, on search results, on social media, how long is it before you give up on that page when it's just a blank white page and you see that little loading bar creeping across? How long do you usually give that? My guess it's somewhere between 3 and 5 seconds before you abandon the page and move on to the next thing you were doing. Like our attention spans are much faster than they used to be. And so we have to be ready to react to that. And so as page load time goes up to 6 seconds, up to 10 seconds, the possibility that that person is going to bounce raises dramatically. And so you can see the biggest jump is the 3 to 5 second range, which is where most people are giving up on that loading experience. So if you have questions about your own page speed, these page speed insights, this is a Google thing, like literally if you just Google page speed insight or page speed checker, the Google one will pop up. It's an incredibly useful resource because it will tell you exactly how you're doing in terms of load speed and what things might be impacting your load times, especially on mobile. So you can see up here on the left, you can toggle between mobile and desktop performance. So this is just the M&R homepage. I will fully admit our website is a little bit interesting right now, which is why we're scoring a little bit lower than we possibly should be. But the best part about this is that as you scroll down the page, it will tell you exactly what things could be impacting your load time. And so for us, it looks like we need to reevaluate how we're loading images. We have some CSS and JavaScript that might be hanging out that's no longer being used or should be minified. but just lots of other little like technical fixes that you can send to your developer and say, hey, could we address these things on our website? We think it might help load our site faster. So just one big tool in your tool belt to start addressing how quickly your site might be loading. So I'm going to talk about Google Analytics. I know this is the face that most people will make while they think about Google Analytics. I'm here for you. It's going to be okay. If there are questions, we can talk about those, and you can follow me on Twitter and we can have a conversation about this afterwards if you still have questions. I'm just warning you right now, we're going to talk about Google Analytics. I know it can be triggering. Here's a little cheat sheet about Google Analytics. So I love this platform because it gives me so much data on so many different aspects of behavior. One of the big things that it gives us insights on is how performance on mobile and desktop differs, and really just gives us a sense of how many people are even coming to us on mobile and desktop. And so these are the main sections of the Google Analytics report that you see on the left side. It's incredibly intimidating. It doesn't make any sense unless you've really spent a lot of time reading their, very detailed mumbo jumbo Google Analytics words. I really hate the way they do their vocabulary. So I've translated it here for you. When we're talking about audience, we're just talking about the characteristics of the people that are on the site. A lot of this data is fed in by the Google Ad Network. When we're talking about acquisition, that's how people are coming to us, the channels that they use to get to us, whether that be social media, search, email, you name it, that's where that information will be. And then behavior is what happens when someone's on the website. So things like goals or other events are going to be folded into the behavior section, and that's where you can find that information. And then conversions. I really truly call this like the ultimate goal is to convert our donors. Obviously, if you have a different purpose for your website, it won't be your ultimate goal. But if you're attending this conversation today about donors, it probably is. And that's where e-commerce lives. E-commerce is a whole extra set of code to install on your website to track donations. I can point you towards some resources too if you have those, but I will not be covering e-commerce today. So diving right on in. So we're going to talk about audience. How do you find the proportion of people who are coming to your website? So I mentioned that 50% number earlier. So what is your percentage? It's actually really easy to find. So here you can see I've selected under audience because I want to know characteristics. And on the left here, we've got mobile and then overview. So this is where this very basic breakdown of device category lives. And you can see, hopefully you can see, it might be blurry or small for you, that mobile is our most popular source of traffic, or the users coming to our site are overwhelmingly using mobile. And this says that 83% of our visitors in this time period were using their mobile phone to be on our website. That's pretty big. And only 15% of them are on desktop devices. There can be a lot of reasons for this. One reason being that you have a ton of content, a lot of educational and research content that people find on organic search. Oftentimes that will lead to a much higher proportion of mobile visitors to your website. Secondary dimensions. Okay, this is going to get a little bit in the weeds, and it is magic, but it might be confusing. Bear with me here. So secondary dimensions are these additional filters and additional dimensions, really, that we can apply to all of our Google Analytics reports. It can be applied to any report in any section of your analytics. And the best part about that is, remember, we're talking about device category as being a dimension that we want to be looking at. We can add that device category to literally any report in here to check out what our mobile users are doing. And so it's this little drop down here at the top of the data table. And so what we do is just type in, I usually just type it into the little search bar because otherwise it's a lot of scrolling because there's just, obviously Google Analytics is like kind of a black hole of data. So it's easier, it's much easier to deal with if you go in knowing exactly what you're looking for. And so here's what the report now looks like. I've blurred the actual data out to preserve the innocence of the clients that I was working with. So now we can see that, I mean, these dashes are just the homepage. Now we can see that most of the homepage visitors are actually on desktop, and mobile users are really just coming to other sections of the site. And then you can use this little search bar here on the right to search for if you want to look at information on a specific page or a specific event. So lots of juicy data here. And now my favorite fundraiser. I feel like everything is my favorite with Google Analytics. I'm sorry if I've said that multiple times, but really, I love data. So if we're talking about looking for information about people who are coming to us from a specific channel or a specific, you know, external place, those are considered channels. And Google has what they call the default channel grouping. And so it's 10 categories of traffic based on the attributes of that, you know, inbound traffic, essentially. So they automatically will tag a lot of that. So organic search being primary among them. Obviously, if someone clicks through a Google result, Google Analytics will know that that person is coming from Google. Referral just means that it's coming from another website. And then other is like not categorized. Since there's so much other traffic here, I'm assuming there's something going on with their UTM codes, and I'm gonna go look at that. Direct means that they're coming in without any attributes at all. And then we have paid search. So that's if you're running like CPC ads or anything like AdWords, that's all gonna come in there. And then we have display, which is again ads, social. A lot of the social platforms will automatically tag their links for you as well. And then at the very bottom here, we've got email. Google Analytics will only know your email traffic is email if you categorize it as such. It's UTM_medium equals email. So unless you're doing that, unfortunately, this report will not be for you. But I highly recommend that everyone use UTMs. They're fantastic. So another probably a little bit blurry chart here or table here. I've blurred out again the URLs to protect the innocent. And so now I'm looking, I've clicked through the email. I just like clicked on it in that report. And I'm seeing the landing pages, which are all of the pages that someone got to from an email. And so most of these are donation form URLs. A couple of them are the homepage. And then I think there was also a newsletter that was sent. So there are a few additional content links here sprinkled throughout. And so now I can see, remember my friend, the secondary dimension. I'm now looking specifically for donation forms. This was a donation form that we were using in this campaign. So I just want to look at just this donation form. I'm going to search for it. And then I've added my good friend device category. And lo and behold, because I'm already looking at email traffic, and I'm only looking at the donation form that was sent out in our appeal, now I can see the proportion of users that clicked through my email on desktop and mobile. And so lo and behold, we actually still have a higher percentage of users who are clicking through our emails on their desktop devices versus mobile. And a big fat caveat right now is that we have been seeing a lot more traffic come into our websites from desktop during COVID than we had before. Our hypothesis for this is that folks were checking their personal emails while they were doing commuting activities. So while they were on the bus, on the train, waiting for a bus, you know, in that moment where you're just kind of hanging out waiting for something somewhere outside your home, which is something that a lot of us have not done a lot of recently. So we're just seeing a bigger shift back towards desktop that we expect to kind of go back towards mobile. So that's a caveat as you're looking through reports and being sensitive about date ranges and making claims about traffic forever based on time during COVID. Breath. There's a lot. If you want to talk more about Google Analytics, I'm here. We will geek out about it. It's an incredibly powerful tool, as I just showed you, like a very tiny tip of the iceberg. And if you are serious about making your website especially better for mobile users, Google Analytics is going to be one of your best friends for doing so. That said, I know there are questions. I'll pause for a moment. Do we have?
Yes, there are some questions regarding Google Analytics, of course. So it looks like we have some people that are quite new to Google Analytics. If we want to just rewind back kind of to the basics, we have a question coming in asking if you have to pay to access Google Analytics.
Google Analytics is free. You do have to install it on your website. It does not happen automatically. Literally just search for Google Analytics. There are a ton of incredible resources on the Google website. Imagine that, because it is their product, so they want to guide you through it. I also would recommend taking the Google Analytics Academy, which is also free. It's a little video course that walks you through the basics of what the reporting is, what it means, and how to use it. So definitely go check that out if this is new to you. It's an incredible skill to have. Really, as soon as someone knows that I know how to use Google Analytics, I get 20 questions. So really, it's an incredible skill to have in your fundraiser belt. And I also see questions about accessing. You need a Google account, but like once it's set up, you essentially just go to analytics.google.com and log in, and there's your data. That's great. And then UTMs are URL parameters that we add to our links that we control. So our owned traffic, that's things that we're posting on social media, that we are sending out in emails, that we are installing on ad creative, that we can control the URL, and that we know that the traffic coming in is coming inbound to our website, so we can track that data. And so a URL campaign builder, again, just Google campaign builder, and it'll come up, and it'll guide you through the different tags available and like how to correctly identify different types of traffic. So I did mention that email is particular, and that you have to use UTM_medium equals email lowercase e in order for Google to recognize that as email traffic. So how do you use it? You just add it to the URL that you're using.
Perfect, thanks, Karen. I just wanted to clarify one other thing. It was when you were talking about load page time, so a little bit farther back. Someone was asking about how to find, I believe you're talking about finding opportunities, and they're just wondering if you could touch a little bit more on that. How do you find those opportunities?
Yeah, so on the page insight, the load speed insight report, it's really just once you've put in your URL, the whole report like unfolds. It's a very long report, so that's why I didn't take a screenshot of the whole thing. You just scroll down, it's right there.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, I mean, people are still slightly, they're asking more questions still.
Yeah. I knew I was opening a dangerous
analytics. Perfect, thanks, Karen, for popping that in the chat there.
Yep, and I'm gonna say Google URL campaign builder or Google is where to go in order to understand UTMs. So just
great, thank you.
Like Google it, but like when it's a Google product, literally Google is amazing at supporting their own product, and that's why I'm like, you should Google it because they have answers that are way better than the answers that I will give you today. But yeah, so thanks to the folks that are also helping me out in the chat, answering questions about Google Analytics. Again, find me on social or on LinkedIn later if you still have questions, and I will direct you towards some additional resources for learning how to use the platform.
Wonderful. Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, but I did want to talk about it because it is a space for collecting data and collecting information on people, because really, like, we can't fix what we don't know. We can have assumptions, we can have opinions, but until we see the data, until we see it working, we don't know if what we're doing works, right? Like, we're kind of just poking in the dark. But all of that is to say that context is everything. So even though we're talking about, you know, most people are visiting us on their mobile devices and it's 50% of our traffic and we need to get them to donate, and the way that we approach all of that creative and all of that effort that we're putting into connecting with these folks on mobile, the design decisions we're making, how we structure our forms, how we're talking to people, if we're using other channels like SMS, which we'll talk about in a minute, we have to remember that context is everything. Where are people when they're using their phones? What are they doing? Are they distracted? Are they commuting? What might their overall economic situation be? We really need to stop and consider what other outside factors, that qualitative information that we can't see in the data, what could be influencing someone's behavior? Could they be seeing our ads out of home? Like, do we have an opportunity to install a QR code on a bus stop ad, for instance, where we can ask people to scan a code and send a petition? So really, all of these things feed into the idea that people are using their phones all over the place. And so experimentation is really important, and also, again, relying on the data, figuring out what works for your organization, and building on some success. So I've already paused for questions. I'm going to keep going for the moments, and I'm going to talk about some successes that we've seen. So as Mel mentioned at the very beginning, I oversee our testing department here at M&R. So that means all the testing we do, whether it be an email, on ads, on websites, like, I have a hand in that, and it's super fun because, again, I love data. So when we're thinking about testing on mobile, again, we're thinking about the context, like, why would we make a change, a design decision based on someone's mobile moment? And so the first thing that we tested, this is a very old test, was font size, because anything written for a mobile audience should be at least 16 points big. That seems really big when you're looking at it in your desktop, but chances are, if you open up something on your phone and the font is like teensy tiny, you're not gonna read it. You're just gonna give up and leave, right? Like, or you're gonna blow it up and have to like scroll all around, and like, that's not a very good user experience, right? And so we tested this, and chances are, like, lo and behold, literally all we did was change the font size, and we saw an 8% improvement in conversion rate among mobile users. It's like not a big deal, but it is a big deal when you think about the context of the people on their phones. Again, just sizes. Size is everything. So we just, this is a link test where we just made the link bigger and easier to click on with someone's thumb on their mobile device. And we saw a 10% improvement in conversion rate for this as well. So it's just like these tiny things that we can really just like put yourself in the shoes of someone reading your email on mobile. I will say long copy is not the enemy, because it used to be. It used to be that we needed to make everything on mobile as short as possible, because attention spans and, you know, we only had a moment and people were in a hurry. But that's not true anymore because of the advent of things like Facebook and Instagram, where we're all now trained to scroll until we find something that catches our attention. And so we're finding that longer donation copy and longer emails are actually doing as well on mobile as they are doing on desktop, because people are used to scrolling until they find something that is relevant to them. So if there's someone on your staff that is arguing that everything on mobile has to be short, fight against that, because people on mobile still need that information in order to persuade them to donate. Just because they're on a mobile device doesn't mean that they know more about your organization. Like, we still have to do that persuasion work. Anyway, now I'll step down from my copy link soapbox. So mobile payment options are on the rise all over the place, especially now in times of COVID, where like every restaurant that I go to, like I scan a QR code and then I have the option to like check out with PayPal. Like, it's wild to me, like how quickly we've advanced into the mobile payment age. But promoting that you have a mobile payment option is also successful. So this was an ad that we ran for the UNHCR agency, the one in the US. And literally we targeted the ad for only people on iOS devices. And just says like, donate with Apple Pay. And we saw an 18% improvement in conversion rate with this ad over one that did not include that Apple Pay option. So again, wild. We also have been testing PayPal and especially PayPal Express, which is a different implementation of PayPal, where you get the information about your donors back from PayPal. So this is the exact same donation form, just the one on the left doesn't have a payment selection specified yet. If I clicked credit card, it will continue to say next. And on the right, we have our PayPal options. We're using PayPal Express for this organization. And you can see it just says submit. This is it. This is the whole form. I don't have to type in my name, my email address, credit card information, nothing. I click the PayPal button, I hit submit. I confirm on the little pop-up from PayPal. It's like, yes, I do want to do this. And voila, donation goes through. And then the organization gets the information back from PayPal. This is a relatively new integration. We built this out custom for this client. They're in Illuminate, the Blackbaud Illuminate. But it is coming. Be aware, do the research. Every platform is different. We've also tested into mobile specific ad formats, and just understanding again that people are using their devices differently on their phones versus when they're doing Google searches on text or on their desktop. So our desktop form, if you're familiar with Planned Parenthood, actually has like really high ask string amounts. I think it starts at like $100 and just goes up from there, which is a huge gift amount, especially now since we know that average gift for mobile users is lower. So we tested instead this option to put our ask string amounts right on the ad, where folks could interact with them right on they're like little like product slider options, which don't ask me how to implement them. I am not an ads person, but I know they exist and they're pretty cool. But because we were able to show these amounts to mobile users, we were able to get a higher conversion rate from those mobile users during end of year, which is very important for, as anyone who knows, fundraising at all, end of year is king. Cool. I feel like I'm just like blowing through examples, but we really have done so many cool things. And this is really to inspire you and to think differently about how we are interacting with our mobile users. So here we have a multi-step form. And if you go, so this is Feeding America. If you go to feedingamerica.org on your web or on your desktop and click donate, you will see a beautiful image and a long single step form. But if you go to that exact same website and click on that exact same button on your phone, you will see the form broken up into these steps. The reason was we had a question when we were redesigning their donation form, what people would prefer. Does a multi-step form work? Does a single step form work? So we tested it. And what we found was that desktop users overwhelmingly preferred the single step form, and mobile users overwhelmingly preferred the multi-step form. And so we said, okay, we'll use both. And so we basically just wrote some CSS to fold up our single step form and have like little next buttons and progress buttons for our mobile users. And there we go. We were able to have the best of both worlds. And just seeing the number of notifications on these screenshots is stressing me out, so I'm gonna go. Another really important thing to remember, again, about embracing our donors in every channel they might be using, especially younger donors, especially donors that are falling outside our like quote unquote typical traditional audience, is to reach them where they are and to do so in the style of that platform. So swipe up activism is something that has definitely taken the US by storm this summer, with all of the racial unrest and other, big, huge things that are happening. Like, don't get me started, we can do that over a drink later. But by creating these ads and these interactive things, stories, these are Instagram stories, for each organization, we're able to like fit in to the aesthetic of the platform and to actually engage folks. I'm sure that when you're scrolling through and when you're looking through your stories, it's like really obvious when an ad comes up and you like swipe left as fast as possible, like just to like keep clicking through those stories to find your friends. But what we're finding is that we have really good engagement with these types of ads on that platform because they're in the style of that platform. And we're seeing donor recruitment levels at similar rates to other platforms. So I know historically people are like, don't use Instagram stories for ads, but like you should use them if you have the content to do it in platform, the way the platform was designed. Cool, I'm gonna pause. I saw lots of questions.
Yeah,
tools. I'll take the A/B testing tools first. Yes, yeah. I do use analytics for a lot of my testing. If I'm doing email testing, it's typically data that we get right out of the CRM, which is like opens, clicks, donations. Anything on the website, I am using Google Analytics. And one of the great things about Google Analytics these days is they've also have a platform called Google Optimize, which is free and is a testing platform. Go ahead, look it up. I think I'll probably like add some more links that can be sent around with this. Yeah, it's really easy to use as long as you have Google Analytics installed. Pop it right up. There are some paid platforms that are much more expensive. Optimize, Lead, VWO, A/B Tasty are all the big ones. There might be a few other smaller ones out there too. I know Crazy Egg and Hotjar have some limited testing things. So there are lots of options. If you literally just search like website testing, there's tons of guides out there for you. And swipe up donations, I believe you can do that if you're running ads. You can't do it as an organic option, I don't think. They are starting to do more of like micro-influencer certifications, so it's worth it to reach out to Instagram to see if they will allow you to do that. So email them.
Yeah. Great, thank you. There was another question about when you were talking about text on mobile, and you said it was kind of accepted now to add longer text. And so the question from Christy is asking, our newsletter stories are about a paragraph with a click here to read more, which links to our blog. Should we just include the entire story in the newsletter?
It depends on what your goal is. If your goal is to just get someone the information, sure. However, if your goal is to get that person to also maybe donate after they've read your article, you're going to want to get them to a place where you have the opportunity to show them another call to action. And so that's ultimately why we have those blurbs and we're like, click here to read more. And then you come to the website that has a donate button, that has a case for giving, that has all of that other information that a donor needs in order to feel confident donating to your organization. So again, depends on your goals, but typically I would still err towards getting them to the website where you have opportunities to do more things with them. Yeah, good questions.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think that's the majority of them. There's still a couple more questions about Google Analytics, but I think we've answered pretty much most of the questions here.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, and I know I'm talking fast. I just have a lot to say. Yeah, you will get all of this at the end. Afterwards, there's a recording and you get the deck and all of that. So don't worry if you're not writing, like taking notes fast enough. You'll get that. I wish professors did that when I was in college. That would have been great. Anyway.
There's also a question asking about if the chat info will be available. I know there's a lot going on in the chat. We will try to include that in the follow-up email. I know you can export that from Zoom, although I'm pretty sure it only exports whatever was selected, whatever people selected, all panelists and attendees. So you might not receive all of the chat info, but we'll try to include that as well for all of you, so you have all of that.
Yeah, cool.
Sorry, go ahead, Karen.
Cool. No, it's fine. I'm going to get through this. 7 minutes. We're going to do it. Okay. So I'm going to talk about text messaging now with a big caveat that all of the examples I show here are US nonprofits. So make sure, like, if you are exploring an SMS program or a peer-to-peer texting program, that you're following your local regulations and you're not going to get sued, because SMS is a weird in-between platform right now where it's not quite regulated yet. So again, rules can change. Rules might be different in other countries. I'm not familiar with what the rules are in Canada. So big caveat that please check your rules first and clear with your legal team before embarking upon an SMS program. There's my legal disclaimer. Anyway, text messaging is a huge marketing platform right now. It's a huge marketing channel, primarily because people read their text messages, especially younger users. And even, I mean, my parents are way into it now. My dad used some emojis the other day and I was shocked, but it's showing that the adoption rate, it's coming, it's there. So backing up, what is SMS? SMS are text messages. We're typically talking about blast SMS when we're looking at these alerts or other types of just here's some information and a link, go and do this thing. So it's also just a really great way to reach people wherever they are. Because remember, we got our phones all the time, and chances are you look at your text messages before you look at your email. So it's a huge growing platform. Our audiences grew by 26% this year. It's a huge growth, especially because Facebook is slowing down. It's harder to build those audiences on Facebook. And our email list size is again decreasing, largely because of deliverability and making sure that we're only reaching the most active folks. But again, it's a mature channel. Those things are already really stable, and texting is growing. But it's still pretty small. So most nonprofits, or the middle of the road nonprofit in our study, had 72 mobile subscribers for every 1,000 email addresses. So still pretty small. But they're incredibly active. So if we look at these click-through rates, you can see that for fundraising, we're getting 4.2% of our recipients to click through a text message. And for advocacy, that number is twice as big, 9.8%. Almost 10% of people who receive a text message to take an advocacy action click through. That's huge. And when we're even thinking about call-in, so in the US, we call our representatives to yell at them when they're doing things that we don't like. I mean, don't yell at them. please don't yell at them. I was an intern once, please don't yell at the interns. But we call them, and we can do now mobile SMS alerts that do one-click call-ins. You can click on the link and it will literally call the Capitol like switchboard and connect you to your representative. Which is like pretty great, because before it used to be like multi-step. You had to like type in a phone number. Like, I'm a millennial, I'm not gonna do that, remember? Mm-mm. So if we're comparing this to the performance of email, this is our click-through rate for fundraising. For email, it's only 0.56% of the people that you're gonna reach that are gonna actually click through, versus SMS, 4.2%. That's a pretty promising statistic here. Now we also have peer-to-peer texting. So that's, there are platforms that are like, I think one is Hustle, and there are a couple of others that allow you to build out mass peer-to-peer programs where folks can literally open a voter file and like text a bunch of voters about registering to vote, which if you're in the US, today is National Voter Registration Day, please register to vote. But also these have a huge interaction percentage as well. So 14% of all people who receive a peer-to-peer message will respond to that. They'll like type a message back. You're like having conversations with real people. And again, we say this no matter where we're talking to people. Talk to them like they're people. Have a conversation with them. Be human. Like, robots make terrible fundraisers. Don't be a robot. Be a human. Introduce yourself, especially if you're doing SMS programs. So whenever we're engaging with folks, we almost always say, hi, I'm this person. Put a face on it. Make it human. Because in a lot of cases, like we're doing peer-to-peer, there is a real human on the other side of that. So my donor person soapbox. So we're talking about, we're reaching all these people, but what are we actually getting them to do? So one of our organizations tested adding SMS alongside their email campaign at the end of the year. And they actually saw a 97% increase in donors that responded to that campaign and a 57% improvement in revenue per visitor. So that statistic is not people that directly click through the link in their mobile and gave. That's looking at the overall cross-channel performance of a campaign by adding an additional touch point, reinforcing the deadline, reinforcing what was happening with whatever we were fundraising around. That combined with the email, combined with our social media, combined with all of these other things that we were doing and making a surround sound experience for our potential donors, we had this huge result. Almost 100% more people actually came out of the woodwork and donated. Incredibly powerful. SMS can also be used to get in touch with people that we would consider undeliverable. And so that's people that have inactive email addresses, perhaps people that have unsubscribed from email. Oftentimes people prefer different channels. Like, again, like I don't use my email that much for promotional like emails, but I've signed up for a lot of text message alerts for like when my favorite jeans are going on sale. Like, it's just something that people are doing a lot more of. And then of course you can use it to reinforce headlines or even break news. One of the most popular ways that folks have done this recently is for the vice presidential announcement. The campaign said, sign up to be on our text message list and you'll be the first to know who we pick as our vice president running mate. And lo and behold, they actually did that and sent out a text message blast 2 hours before they told everyone else, which was a nice touch. So we are running out of time. So I just noticed what time it was. Shall I keep going, Mel, or do we need to cut it off?
I mean, we are recording this, so we could keep going if people wanted to stay on. I don't know how much more you have left, but if people are happy to stay on, Karen, if you're happy to stay on, we are happy to. We actually don't have a webinar until about an hour from now, so we can keep going. And if anyone does need to run, please feel free to do so. We will definitely be sending this recording afterwards. So up to you.
Chock full of fun examples. So a big question is, how do you actually get people to join your mobile network? Like, how do you find people's cell phone information? Well, it's a way that you get a lot of other information. So you ask people for it. So one of the best ways that we've done this for our advocacy clients has been to add a mobile opt-in option directly onto our advocacy forms. So you can see that there is a phone field and then an opt-in checkbox here at the bottom to send text messages about the campaign. So that's one very easy way. And I know folks are going to ask, but adding more form fields to your pages, to your donation forms, to your action alerts, like that could impact conversion rate. And so I had exactly the same question. And so we tested it. Here's our example from the Humane Society, where we added our mobile phone number. You can see it here in the middle of the page. And by doing so, we increased our pool of textable donors. So the number of people that we could reach through text message that were on our existing donor file by 319%, just by adding this optional field to our donation form. And it did not have a detectable impact on conversion rate on this form, which is like the dream. So I got the numbers, but didn't impact conversions. You can also just send out an email. I know I'm like, don't email people because they want to be texted, but you have to email them in order to get their text information so that you can text them. These are actually pretty successful. It's just kind of announcing that you have a new channel and a new way to reach people if they would like to opt in. So one of them is actually just from, it's in the welcome series for this organization on the left, where it's just like, hey, thanks for donating, like sign up for our text alerts. Simple, easy, just like add it to the normal stream. Or on the right, they sent this quarterly to their audience, just saying like, hey, we have this other program if you'd like to be a part of it. You can also just add it to the footer of your email, or if you're doing in-person events, maybe someday if you're doing in-person events, adding it to other, what we would consider like out-of-home places as well. So in one, it's just in the footer of an email, and then obviously my good pal Elizabeth Warren here promoting her text messaging at all of her events. It was on all of their materials. And then social media. So this one is like a very brand new, fresh example, like literally from this weekend that I screenshot. So if you have a platform that allows you to use keyword opt-ins, so this is where it's like text a word to a number, that would be what we would consider a keyword opt-in. And it will automatically generate a text flow for you where you can send your petition and then get added to a list. So if you're in the US, you can try this out and just watch it go. And yes, I see 2 questions about platforms. There are a bunch out there. They vary wildly in cost. So I would recommend doing a little bit of research on that. Okay. I can hang out for 7 minutes for questions. And then I have to go get a haircut. Like, not even kidding.
There's been a couple questions. Sorry, I'm just kind of trying to sift through them. Give me 1 second here. How does WhatsApp compare with text messages? Can we talk a little bit more about that?
WhatsApp is very similar. I don't think there is a blast option with WhatsApp. I might be wrong about that. So the difference is just the scalability of it. So if you wanted to like get, 10 people together and like have a list of people to like manually message, that is an option, but the peer-to-peer platforms that I was mentioning earlier are essentially desktop apps or apps you can actually install on your phone to like automatically manage a list of phone numbers. So that would be the difference, I think.
Great, thanks, Karen. We do have a bunch of questions actually coming in about Keela. So I would recommend reaching out to our sales team. You can just go right onto our website and contact the sales team there. They'd be more than happy to answer any of your technical questions. We just don't really have the time to go through all of those right now. So I honestly think other than those Keela questions, I think the vast majority of them have actually been answered. So I think we'll end it there. We're very close to time here. So yeah, Karen, I don't know if you had any last thoughts before I close this off. I just have one little thing to say at the end here.
Yeah, just a couple of tiny plugs. M&R is hiring. So if you are living in the US, I think you do have to live in the US in order to work with us. Check us out. We have a bunch of positions where we would be really excited to talk to you. And feel free to connect with us on all the social media platforms. Again, I know there are lots of questions about Google Analytics. Hit me up on the socials and we can chat more.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm just going to share my screen and to close it off here. So before we do sign off though, I know we went a little bit over time, so my apologies. You will receive the recording, so don't worry if you had to jump out early. I just wanted to remind you that once this webinar closes, there will be a survey that pops up, and we'd love it if you could answer that. Honestly, it's only about 3 questions. It's really quick, so it would help us improve these events so much more. So please do that. And also just wanted to remind you all that our next session is in about 50 or so minutes. It'll be led by Jude Scheimer, where they will be leading a session on how to be respectful with gender pronouns. It's going to be a really good one. We had them speak for one of our other conferences earlier on the year, and it was really popular. So I highly recommend you to check that out. I believe Ines just popped that link into the chat if you haven't already registered for that one. And I think with that, that is all for this session. Thank you so much, Karen. I know that was such an amazing session. We never had so many questions come in like that before. So I'm super happy that everyone was really engaged. And yeah, feel free to reach out to Karen if you have any more questions. And with that, I will see you at the next session, which is in 50 minutes. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Karen. I don't know if you wanted to say bye to everyone, but thank you so much.
Yep, thanks for bearing with me through all my data.
Bye-bye.